Hello and welcome to another edition of Shadowcast. Today we have a very splendid guest. We have an expert on paganism who is also an author and a singer, musician. In terms of authorship, she has produced Women of Babylon, Voices from the Ashes, and Tales from the Tarot. And she's also featured in The Eloquent Blood by Manon Hegenborg. I'd like to introduce Lou Hotchkiss-Knives.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Lou. I'd also like to introduce our other compatriots, Chris Ball Hero.
Good morning.
And Dave Gray.
Good morning.
So, Lou, obviously you're a lady of many talents. Could you just give us a flavour about the sorts of things you've been doing recently?
Yeah, so I started on the path of paganism when I was a teenager. I'm now 47. So over the years, I taught. So I've been initiated. Then I taught magic, and basically the faith. I've been an author. I've done conferences. I've been a speaker. So the occult conference in Glastonbury, the Dolmen camps as well. Next summer, I'm doing the Merchant Gathering. I normally talk on pagan subjects. Generally it's history, but also practices like poisonous plants and poisonous plant spirit shamanism. That's been my latest contribution. I've been working with the goddess Babylon, who's the goddess in the system of Thelema, which is the system that Aleister Crowley created. And so my work on that has been featured in magazines, and also I've been interviewed quite a few times over it. And there you go. That's kind of my speciality, really. And at the moment, so I've been also writing fiction, also based on occultism, and I'm preparing a poetry anthology. If the editor thinks that is good enough, I might have my first book of poems out. I'm also in two bands, the Grave Reapers and Works to Witches. That Johnny is the manager of the Grave Reapers. And what else can I say? I'm a teacher, and that's it, really. I think we've been around the presentations.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that introduction. We're hoping that we're going to be speaking to you on a few different occasions over a few different podcasts. But today, what we would like to do is to concentrate specifically on Christmas time and Yule, and how the average pagan, if there is such a thing, how pagans approach this time of year. So first of all, before we speak with Chris and Dave, my first question to you would be, how is this time of year important to you?
Well, so in neo-pagan system, one of the axes is the journey of the sun. And obviously at Yule, that's when the sun is reborn. So we see the goddess as represented by the longest night, and she gives birth to the new sun at solstice. So that's something that's been celebrated in ancient times. And I could talk at length about that if you want later. But for our practice, it's obviously the time when the system flips on itself, and now gradually the day starts getting longer. So that's when really the seeds of possibility of the new year are being sown. So it's a time then we celebrate children, obviously, because the sun is young. Time of celebration, time of renewal. And we have this concept of the Holy King and the Oak King. So the dark part of the year is ruled by the Holy King. And at winter solstice, they have a fight. And the young king, the oak king, overpowers the holy king and starts ruling over the light part of the year. So that's a concept you find in like medieval literature or things like that, the old king being replaced by the new one. You find that in also other pagan systems. I mean, in ancient Rome, for instance, you had the Rex Nemorensis, who was a criminal who ended up being one of the priests of the goddess Diana at Lake Nemi. And this king, the king Rex Nemorensis, was defeated by another king who was then taking his place. So one king replacing the other, you find that, and that's also part of the concept of neo-paganism. Yes.
Okay. Chris, what does this time of year mean to you?
Yeah, what I was trying to say, Lou, is when does it actually start? Because don't the pagans have a different Christmas to like the other, like the Christians and all like that?
Yeah. So the winter solstice. So winter solstice, is when the sun stands still in the sky and he's at his furthest point from the earth.
Yeah.
And so the traditional date is the 21st of December. Like the summer solstice is 21st of June. Obviously, there is the actual like cosmic solstice when the sun is actually at that place, and it's not necessarily on the 21st every year. To be honest, I don't know what date it is this year. I'd better find out. But
Okay.
generally, it's within 1 or 2 days. It's within about 3 days. That's when it happens.
Yeah, because what I've been told is that people said, "Oh, it starts earlier in December." I thought it just started like a couple of days. You know what I mean? Like you just said as well, Lou.
Yeah,
About when it
basically.
starts. Yeah, that's yeah. What other holidays do pagans have as well?
So we have, I mean, you got Sabbath and Esbat, yeah. That's more a weekend concept. But basically, what holidays we tend to have is the solar festivals.
Yeah.
So you've got the 2 solstices and the 2 equinoxes. And then you've got what they call the cross quarters festivals. So you've got Imbolc, which is like Candlemas. It's in February. After the spring equinox, you got Beltane. That's my favorite. That's 1st of May. So it's big time for partying. Then you've got summer solstice when the sun's at its peak, and
Yeah.
after that the days begin to shorten. So we go towards Lunasa, which is the harvest festival. We've got the autumn equinox, and then we're going to Samhain, which is basically what people call Halloween now. And again, there's evidence that it's probably a modern festival rather than an ancient one. But it's also one of the best because in Wiccan system, that's considered to be Witch's New Year. No, that's a 21st century concept, all right? That's
Yeah.
not that. There's no ancient something. But it's quite nice, because we celebrate New Year at Samhain, at Halloween. And then obviously we've got another New Year coming in January. So every opportunity to party is a good opportunity.
So they have so many different holidays then, really.
Yes, and then you got the moons as well, but they're more like for private celebrations.
All right, then. Okay, then. Yeah.
And Dave.
This time of year, I must admit, I'm more of a summer person, but I suppose obviously Christmas, do I get excited about it? Not so much now. When I was younger, I think it's more a time for children, personally, I think. But I think it's good to have it because there's dark nights and things like that, an excuse maybe to go to the pub a bit more often, maybe. But obviously, yeah, I mean, it's just, I think I'm always looking forward to we talk about the solstice. I think that's hopefully, you get through the shortest day, hopefully you're getting closer to the longer days. I think that's what I look forward to.
Yeah, I don't know for you, but I'm not a big fan of the winter days, really. I mean, I know because it's part of the wheel and it's part of that cycle. It's as sacred as the summer days. But frankly, when it's raining like today, and I wanted to be outside and no, I can't, it's always a bit disappointing. But there you go.
You say you come from Sweden originally?
No, I come from France.
Oh, from France, right? Okay.
The lady you interviewed for the book, she's Swedish.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I come from northern France on the Belgian border. That's where I was born. And I came to live in England in 1999.
So you've been here for a while then.
Yeah, I'm local now. That's it.
Lou, there is one other question I need to ask you. I don't know if it's relevant what it is, but what it is that do animals get sacrificed in these like events and that?
So back in the olden days, yes, they would. So there's good evidence, because we go to Stonehenge at summer solstice.
Yeah.
But there's good archaeological evidence that it was actually used at winter solstice, and they know that because they found the bodies of porks, that have been killed. So suggesting sacrifice or huge feast with loads of people. And obviously to reach for the pigs to reach that age of maturity, it's got to be winter. So there's good evidence that this was the case. In ancient Rome, you had Saturnalia at this time of year as well, which was a festival of the god Saturn. And again, there would be sacrifices as well. Nowadays, if you buy a bunch of pork pies in remembrance of these old days, then that's kind of how as far as you go. Generally, like most pagans, we tend to be quite hot on animal rights. I know there's people who are, in some tradition, they will rear their own animals, and they will in the old agricultural year, and they will kill them at this time of year. But really, that's just that's people who are more farmers than pagans, if you want. No, we don't do that.
No, it's just that with pagans, because Vikings used to have like a bloody eagle, didn't they? They used to do a bloody eagle on people, but I didn't think they would do that nowadays.
My God, no. And I mean, blood eagle, that was a punishment rather than,
So, Lou, at Christmas time, how does your home differ from that of a Christian home?
Well, to be honest, this is the thing, because a lot of the features of the sort of the festivals that we practice come from not so much from ancient times, but really from folk traditions of later times. So, for instance, the Middle Ages, particularly, most of our traditions are medieval traditions. They're traditions that were not. I'm looking for my words. I'm really sorry. They were not endorsed by the church. They tend to be condemned, but they're folk tradition rather than really actual religious pagan traditions. So it's neo-paganism. It draws a lot on that, on folk culture and old countryside traditions as well. So we bring the outside in. Yeah, now that's something the Romans used to do. That's something that's continued all through after the Roman period and the Christian period. That's something the church tried to banish during the Reformation. And that after a while they realized that there was no point trying to stop people decorating things with holly and ivy. So that's still we still do that, and bringing the outside in, that's become a big thing. So we always do that. We will do wreaths as well of evergreens, again because they symbolize life that continues despite the cold, despite the winter. So we'll use holly and ivy traditionally, and you find traces of that in the Renaissance as well, in certain documents. The holly symbolizes the male and the ivy the female. You put the holly in the hall, and you put the ivy at the door. That's how it works. There's a little poem, actually. I quoted it for you, and I think it's quite lovely. It says, where did I put it? Yeah, it said, in the 15th century, we've got this trace of this little song. It says, let holly have the master as the manner is. Holly stood in the hall, fair to behold. Ivy stood at the door, she's full sorrow cold. So yeah, holly outside, and holly inside and ivy outside. But apart from the kind of gendered symbolism of the two plants, they've got no arcane symbolism other than that. So we use the mistletoe as well. Now, there's loads of things associated with the mistletoe, and that's why it's quite important today. Now, I know groups of women, I haven't done it myself, I'd love to though, who make mistletoe wine. So they will add a bay of mistletoe to their wine because it's got like mild psychoactive properties, and then they will do their winter ritual outside. So I've always wanted to do this. My partner's like, no, you're gonna get poisoned. I think that's that's the next challenge to myself, is to make mistletoe wine. So mistletoe has got an importance in paganism, not for quite a lot of reason. I don't know if you're familiar with the story of Ragnarok, the Viking myth of Ragnarok.
Oh yeah, I've heard a lot about that, Lou, as well. Yeah, I've heard a lot about Ragnarok.
And Dave and Lee, you know that story?
Well, it's just the end. Is that to do with like the end times for the Vikings? Because that's like a show, wasn't it, basically?
Yeah. So it's the twilight of the gods, And in the story of Ragnarok, well, the whole story begins with Loki, always him causes trouble, who decides that he's insanely jealous of Balder, who's the god of light. And Balder's very fair and handsome, and he's got a twin brother who's called Odir, and Odir is the god of darkness, so he's blind. And Loki decides that he wants to kill Balder because he can't stand somebody so handsome existing. And so at that time, because everyone loved Balder, every creature on the earth had made an oath not to ever harm Balder. But one creature hadn't, and that creature was the mistletoe. And so what Loki did was he took a little berry of mistletoe and he put it at the end of an arrow, and he got Odir, the god of darkness, to shoot it. He said, "Hey, look, we're going to shoot this arrow together." Bing! And obviously at the end, well, the aim was Balder, and Balder died. And you can see the symbolism in there, the mistletoe being associated with the time of year when the sun is disappears and dies, before its rebirth, which is after the Battle of Ragnarok. After the Battle of Ragnarok is the daughter of the sun who survived, not the sun himself, but that's another story. So there you go. So that we've got that symbolism here. You still got the little poison, idea of the mistletoe there in there. We've got Pliny the Elder, back in Roman times, who tells us that the Druids used to climb up the oak trees and cut the mistletoe with golden sickle. Somehow, over the years, people have interpreted that to be a winter tradition. Now, mistletoe tend to grow this season, yes, but it seems that the reason why this was happening was because mistletoe in holly is a very rare. Mistletoe in oaks is a very rare thing. But it still has association with Druidism even to this day. So, and the tradition of kissing under the mistletoe that only appears in the 18th century. But we still do that, obviously. And apparently in Devon, the kissing bush, as it was known, that had quite a strong importance in houses. So instead of chucking it out after the festivities like people do today, in Devon, people used to keep it in the house until the next Yuletide, to protect the house against bad influences. So we tend to do a lot of things like this, a lot of things which are associated with countryside practices and folk practices. Now, the foods that we normally eat, like I said to you, pork pies, that's one thing as well. But generally, things, again, that have been inherited from the past, mince pies, gingerbread, that's all things which appeared in the Middle Ages as part of the Yuletide tradition. We know, same thing, the Romans used to cook special cakes for Saturnalia. So there's been this tradition of feasting. Originally, that was something that the royals used to do, but, by the end of the Middle Ages, that was in every house. So obviously we're going to keep that. So there's loads of things that the pagans and the Christian do, which are exactly the same. Yeah. Main difference would be kids will get their presents on Midwinter Day as opposed to Christmas Day. In some houses, they get presents on Winter Day and also on Christmas Day. So they get 2 Christmases, which is pretty cool.
Lucky them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was thinking of other stuff. Food, we've talked about that. Wassailing. Have you wassailed, people?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So that's supposedly that's an Anglo-Saxon tradition. Yeah, pagans do a lot of wassailing. So it's generally a good excuse to drink mead. This season tends to be a mead season. Hippocras as well, but mainly mead.
And I have noticed how popular in recent years wassailing has become, certainly in Devon. You can't miss the wassails now in January.
Yes. So there's the wassailing, the drinking to people's health at this season. But as you're right, in January, there is the blessing of the trees. We did the first one in our village since 1936. So we got a wassail cup, because wassail cups, the cup is just as important as the whole rite itself, isn't it? You got a beautiful cup. There were some people in the village who put on the village website that it was satanic and that we shouldn't go, except that everybody went. So it was a failure. But yeah, we had a good wassailing. Somehow the whole ritual didn't work because the harvest was awful the year after that. So we've done it wrong. But yeah, that's also something that continues as well, and that we will be doing as well. And that's about it really. I think we got a That's the kind of things that we would be doing in pagan household. Again, not very different. You know, we tend to go outside on the day of Yule. We'll do our little ritual. I've got friends who go to Stonehenge and they wait for hours in the snow for the sun to rise. I've never done the midwinter in Stonehenge. Somehow it always falls on the day when I'm working, which really sucks. But yeah, I'd love to do that. Yeah, we watch the sunrise as generally we get up and watch the sunrise. It's easier to do it in midwinter than it is in midsummer, obviously, because you don't have to get up at 4 a.m.
Could you give us an example of the kind of ritual you might do at Yule?
Oh yes. So I'm just having a thing. So yes, we make solar cakes as well. That's shaped like the sun, and you dip them in the cup. The cup representing the female, for instance. So the idea of the birth is that you will put the cake in the wine, and then you get it out and eat it as a symbol for the sun being reborn. You tend to call solar deities as well. So depending on what type of paganism you do, you're going to call different solar deities. We tend to have the goddess representing the earth, and the god representing the sun or everything that lives on earth, like animals and plants. The goddess is the principle on which things sprout and are born, the creative principle. And the god is more like he becomes a child, and he's the lover, and he's the old man. So at this stage, at this time of the year, it's going to be more him as the child and her as a mother. So, you will have people in Celtic tradition who will have her as Ceridwen, and him as Gwydion. Generally, at this time of the year, the goddess is supposed to be an older woman, which is kind of weird because you think women, when they're fertile, then it's in their young years, isn't it? But at this time of the year, we see it's the time of the crone because it's dark nights, and therefore she is the goddess in an old aspect. And as opposed to that, we've got the god in his young aspect. So yeah, that's the kind of stuff we would do, really. And we celebrate together. We pass our cups, we pass our cakes, and we exchange our presents and have a big hug, and then go home and have breakfast.
And of course, there's the decorating of the Christmas tree.
Yes, alors ça, the tree. Thank you for mentioning that, because I didn't mention it at all. The Axis Mundi, isn't it? That represent the axe of the world. So yes, and it's a phallic symbol, let's face it as well, yeah. Yes, and we do that as well. Normally, in my household, we do it on the first day of the Christmas holiday. It's always been like that. So yeah, we don't do it on winter solstice. We do it before. And candles, obviously candles, because the Romans used to already give candles at Saturnalia, symbol of light. People did that in the Middle Ages, and that's been going ever since times began. The idea of the light being linked to the festival. That's always been a big thing. I mean, you've been to Newgrange, maybe some of you in Ireland.
Oh no, I'd love to, but I haven't been.
I'd love to. So that's a winter solstice place, isn't it? Because on winter solstice, the sun goes through a hole, and then it projects on the back of the chamber. So we know that the henge builders had celebration at this time of year, and that it was all about the rebirth of the light. So yeah, anything to do with bringing the light in the house as well, having in the evening candles rather than electric lights. That's also quite a lovely thing to do. So yeah, that's going to be part of celebration as well. And as you can see, there's not that many differences, isn't it? Really. At all. We do very similar things.
Definitely, yes. That there seems very little difference, really.
Absolutely.
In terms of the crackers, is there anything to suggest that has medieval origins at all?
There's something to do. I know, and it's funny. I was talking to someone about this yesterday, and I've got a gap in my mind now. But we're talking about the fact that in the crackers you have the crown, don't you? And that's direct result from the Saturnalia festivals, when you had a king of the festival that was elected. And we've kind of lost that, haven't we? Because in Catholic tradition, the kings is in January when we celebrate the Magi, but in Roman times, when you had Saturnalia, you had a guy who was elected the king of the festivities, and his job was to be the lord of misrule. So he would preside over the household and the pranks. Hello, sorry. There we go. She might just turn up a few times because she's hungry and she's completely drenched because she's been in the rain, so she's going to want attention.
Oh, yes.
So yeah, this is Floki, by the way. Where were we before we got distracted? Oh yeah, the crown. So we had this Lord of Misrule. He'd go around the house playing pranks on everybody, or pranks on the neighbors as well. And so they think that's where it's coming from. And obviously there's all kind of things. The rest of the crackers, the idea of popping them, I thought that was a Victorian thing.
That's what I thought, yes. I wondered if you had any
I
other
haven't
idea.
heard of them before, no, at all. There was a thing back in the day when people used to put masks on. And oh yeah, I forgot to tell you about that. And so the roles were reversed. So in Roman household, the master would serve the servants, and sometimes the women would dress as men, and vice versa. You find that in the Middle Ages, and at the Reformation, there were laws passed against that, saying there was heathenry, shouldn't be done, right? We don't do that anymore. However, during some of the rituals I've done over the years, we've had masks. So we had two people representing the Oak and the Holy King. And obviously the Holy King had a black mask on and the Oak King a white one. And we made them had a fight in the middle of the circle. And there was one year when I was one of the two, and I can't remember which one. I think I was the Oak. And that was quite an amazing experience because my friend was the other king, and we had this mock fight, and we had and we went and we just chucked epithets at each other, and we just we talked about what we represented as we were fighting. And I remember when she overpowered me, she chucked me on the floor like that, and I went limp. Like almost I was going to faint. It was really weird. And I thought, my God, that's when you know it's working, when you get possessed by the energy of the time. And that's when you know you've turned the wheel, that your ritual has been successful, the time has been adequately marked. And yeah, I forgot about this actually. Yeah, it's a good thing to do. That's one of my favorite aspects of the ritual for some reason, and I hadn't even put it in the notes. Right, there you go.
Well, what you've just been explaining there sounds a little bit like a mummer's play.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And again, you see that direct continuity, don't you? And that's an early medieval thing, isn't it? Mummer's plays, but it had the aspects of it, like you said, the mask, the cross-dressing as well, that were inherited from traditions before. And Mummer's plays, I got this really good book, by the way, and I thought I would show it to you if you want to find out more about the ritual. Yeah, it's called the Stations of the Sun by Professor Ronald Hutton, who he writes a lot about paganism, and this is the story of the British ritual. Yeah, starting at the winter solstice and going all the way back, and it's very, very well documented, and it's really worth reading if you want to find out more about this. And yeah, I was reading about Mummer's play actually a few days back. Yeah, and about how like they had been again, it's one of those traditions which isn't a Christian tradition really. It was adopted in Christian households, but when you look at it, there's nothing in the Bibles or in the fathers of the church that said you should do that. And that was criticized in the rest in a what is it called? It's not the Restoration, but the Reformation. And and that barely survived Cromwell. But people like their winter tradition, so Protestantism couldn't extinguish them.
For our audience, would you be able to describe the typical format of a mummer's play?
No, because I've never done one. That's the only thing. Yeah. Absolutely not. I mean, I can give you the format of a ritual. I can't give you the format of a mummer's play. I've never seen one.
Oh, okay.
I know there is a parallel, but obviously for me, I wouldn't be able to tell you if it's exactly the same thing. So maybe you can tell me more about this, Lee.
Oh, well, simply that it's essentially a battle between good and evil, and quite often, strangely, we see St. George appearing as
yes, okay. So, okay. Now that's interesting because there's Welsh traditions which are similar to this as well, but it's demons rather than dragons. Okay, no, I knew there was a continuity, but I didn't realize it was a. I thought it was more about the disguise, etc., and I didn't realize it was about the fighting. So there you go. I learned something today. like they say in South Park.
Lou, there is a
Yeah.
question I do want to ask. Does the pagans, like normal people, they have like Santa Claus? Do the pagans have any roots of any like people like that? Because we know Santa Claus is not real, but I just want to know if the
What
pagans.
have you done? You should have said that online. Everybody's going to know now. Right. So we see the Holy King as being Santa Claus, basically. I mean, and you know, this supposedly Santa Claus used to be dressing in green before Coca-Cola took over. That's the urban myth, I think. I mean, where I come from in northern France, Santa Claus is basically Saint Nicholas. So he dresses the same, etc. But in paganism, we look at him as the Holy King.
Yeah, because he's in red, isn't he, all the time, isn't
No.
he? And I'm just thinking when you see it on the telly, you see him in red, and you know
Yeah.
what I mean. And yeah, and I'm just wondering why. Do you think he might have some pagan roots?
Well, it's difficult to say because again, it's not really linear. You know, I think people have this idea that there's a linear tradition that comes from pagan times through Christian time, but rather than that, it's an amalgamation of various folk tradition, some of them with pagan origins, some of them with later origins, which end up creating the solstice as we know it. So I could give you loads of different threads, which may or may not be the right one. Obviously, Saturn from Saturnalia is an old god with a beard, who rules over that precise time of the year. Saint Nicholas, obviously, that's another one as well, who kind of saved little children. I think he revived children who had been made into mince pies, if I'm correct. So again, it's associated with children, etc. And you know, in Holland, in northern France, and in Belgium, that's when you give the presents to the kids. It's on Nicholas Day.
Yeah, because
But
he's got so many different names, isn't he? Saint Nicholas, Santa Claus,
yeah,
Father Christmas, all like that. You know what I
that's
mean?
it.
I just wondered if he had any pagan roots, you know, for.
That's about as far as you can see. I mean, when you really we think of Santa, we think of the le bonhomme hiver, as we say in French. So he's like the winter man.
Yeah, he's a winter man then.
That's as far as I can tell you, really. I think that, you know, there's nothing definite, really. I mean, and that's the thing with paganism. You will see the symbolism of the times of the year in whatever you want, because the universe is full of symbols, and we read them with our own biases. We read them with our own the way the spirit moves us, really.
Yeah. Do you think the pagans or like the Vikings used to like celebrate, you know, Santa Claus and Saint Nicholas and that, you know, like
Uh,
pray to him and that?
So there's some evidence that there was some festival there. The term Yule, yeah, that appears in the during the Danelaw in England. Before that, it was called like Christe Maesas or something, which gave us the word Christmas. So we know that comes from Viking culture, the term Yule, and we don't really know what it means. They think it comes from Yus, which means merry, as in merry, you know, party merry. Some people say it comes from the word that means wheel. But we've got, you've heard of Snorri Sturluson, do you?
No, I've never.
Sturluson.
No.
But he basically is one of the authors of the sagas, but he writes in post-pagan times. So he writes in the early Middle Ages, and he says we know from him that there were Viking celebrations at this time of the year where sacrifices were made to ensure the fertility of the fields.
Okay, thank you.
I quite like the idea of Father Christmas being the hunter, the bringer of gifts. When you have a small village in Northwest Europe who are dependent on food to stay alive, that person is very important.
That's I like the idea of that. That's a really beautiful way of looking at it as well. And I mean, I suppose in paganism, the hunter thing is a figure that's is also quite honored. I mean, obviously, like I was saying to you earlier with animal rights, I mean, the idea of hunting prey, etc., there's lots of people who are against it. But when you look at the traditional rural lifestyle, you're right. I mean, the hunter would have had a massive importance in there. And I suppose when you have the battle of the two kings, in some tradition, they've got the battle of the hunter versus the king stag. And it's those two kind of virile forces kind of battling. And yes, basically the hunter and the hunted. That's also one of the themes you got in neo-paganism. They say that Han, the hunter, rules over hunters and also animals which are hunted. There's one of the poems, I forgot what the guy is called now. Kevin MacLaughlin, I think it's called. It was the Bard of Bath. You had his chair there, and he wrote a book years ago called Green Fire. And the green fire was the fire that extinguishes in the light of in the eyes of the animal as it's killed by the hunter. And it's almost like there's almost like a loving, sensual experience in that killing. I mean, there's loads of people who are, who would be absolutely horrified by the idea of that. But in the poem, that's what it was. So yeah, there is the hunters have got it's a very lovely idea.
Is it also something to do with the wild hunt? Have you heard about that?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the wild hunt. I know people who did this at winter solstice on Dartmoor on top of a tour. I mean, I didn't go, but I mean that must have been absolutely crazy with the wind, etc. Absolutely, the wild hunt is led. Mm.
And this is linked with like the TV series The Witcher, is it? The concept of the wild hunt.
I've never watched The Witch Show actually, so I wouldn't be able to tell you. But I've got loads of friends who watched it and liked it.
It's something to do like mysterious spiritual figures in the sky, warriors and things like that.
Hmm. Absolutely, and you're not supposed to see it, isn't it? If you see it, they can take you with them, or
Yeah,
you'll be
yeah.
plugged down.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lee, I'm just going back. When you said about Santa Claus was like evil, I thought it was Santa Claus was always had to be good and that. You know what I mean? The way that you were saying before.
Hang on, Chris, you're talking to Lee, are you?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I wasn't sure if you said Lee or Lou.
No, I was talking to Lee, but where's he gone?
Oh, in terms of Father Christmas, about his motives, you mean?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Yeah, his motives. When you said about I was like the hunter, and I was like, wait a minute, I thought Santa Claus was supposed to be good.
Oh, yes, I know what you mean. But yes, what I was meaning was when a village is dependent on food at winter time, for example, deer, the hunting of animals to sustain them, then I'm sure the hunter would be revered. He would be seen as a very noble and important figure.
You didn't have supermarkets back then, did you? So
You couldn't go to Tesco to get your deer, could you?
It's funny that you mentioned that actually, Lee, because there is also the tradition that we've lost now of going door to door and asking for food if you're poor. This time of the year would be a time of charity and hospitality. So the sharing of food with other people. I mean, we still do that, but we don't give to the poor anymore. So when you talk about the hunter coming back to the village with food, I mean, there is this idea of giving food to those who need it most, stopping them from starving, sharing the bounty with them. Yeah, and we don't really go to the poor for Christmas now. I mean, I don't know where I work. We do a hamper for the people who are in hospitals, which is quite nice. And all the different kids in my school do hampers. Um, but we don't really go to the guy who begs in front of Tesco and give him a bag of food. People don't really do that anymore, which is a shame, really. But yeah.
There are organisations that do deliver food to like homeless people and people who are lonely. Because I work for an organisation that works with homeless people. So the people I support, I try and make sure at least Christmas Day they're going to see some friends for a meal or something, family. And if they're not, I'll try and like say, but I can get them food delivered to them.
That's really nice. I'm glad because I think as personal households, like private households don't do that. Now it's the job of charities. What charity do you work with, David?
It's an organisation called BCHA. We work with a lot of the homeless people in Plymouth, so I get referrals from the council. So we run the George and the Night Shelter. We've got a number of houses for homeless people in Plymouth.
That's lovely. That's really lovely. So that's kind of keeping that tradition alive, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I think it is difficult because there's so many people, like, accommodation is hard at the moment, and there's so many people, even when you find accommodation, they're still lonely. They've got no one. They get put to in part of Plymouth where they're on their own.
Mm. Yeah, it must be awful, honestly, because you're thinking of how cold it is and the loneliness of it, and you watch all these people pass with their presents and with their bags full of food. It's nasty, really.
It should be a
Yeah,
time after Christmas. We take all the things you take for granted. You think about those people who haven't got it. We haven't got family and friends. Some people haven't. Or have
Absolutely.
awful lives.
Yeah,
yeah, because
absolutely.
it's because sorry, Luke. Yeah, it's because I see homeless on the streets now, and I just say I wonder how they survive in these winter, these winter weathers and all like that. And I'm
Mm.
just,
Some don't. I mean, I do risk assessments, especially if they risk of mental health, physical health, if they've got more of a risk if they go on the street where they could be more ill. So that's sort of more of a reason to get those people accommodation. You have to prioritize.
So do you get a lot of women out of curiosity? Because I've seen more women homeless now over the past 10 years than they were before. But would you say there's more women on the streets now and pregnant women and things like that? Do you see a lot of that?
I wouldn't say pregnant women, but we do have a families team as well. So if people have got children, then they're covered by the families team. So there are emergency accommodation for people, families. They would be considered priority, obviously. I think
Mm,
the ones often you find on the street or even ones who can't struggle to be around other people or got very extreme addictions.
that must be, yeah. And that's also another thing. If your body's not healthy and you've got to sleep outside.
Yeah, but this time of year,
Mhm.
this week it's been really cold. It must be awful. So there is a thing called, I think it's called warn. So if it gets to like around minus, there's extra provision for people like George House have extra like camping beds. We put people up. It has to be yeah, a certain temperature.
Good. I'm glad.
Dave, it's good to see that you are in the presence of the Northern Lights.
Yeah,
Yes.
we were talking that earlier. Because I asked John Mitchell if he'd ever seen it. I said I've seen it once. I went to Sweden years ago, well, not that long ago, but it wasn't as good as this. It was just like a few bits of clouds moving around, basically.
I had a friend who she went on a trip and he was guaranteed seeing Northern Lights. It was across Sweden. And so when they had reports of weather conditions changing and everything, they had to jump on this on this like sledge pulled by dogs and they were whizzing through the snow until they got to the right area. She said it was absolutely incredible. She absolutely loved it.
That must be probably in Lapland, the Arctic Circle, probably. I'm guessing the very north
Yeah,
part.
it was in the Arctic Circle, yeah.
England's a very big country.
Yeah, apparently you can see them from Glasgow, I was told, from north of Scotland.
I think there's other parts of England, Asian, I've heard even on Dartmoor, so if you're high up, you can see it. But obviously, how good it is, I think you need to go somewhere like Iceland if you want to see it. But definitely in Scotland, you're more likely to. I think if you're in the north.
Mm.
did you say Iceland? You could see them in Iceland as well, Dave.
That's one of the best places because we're very close to the North Pole there, obviously, and obviously it's
Yeah.
places you can visit. A lot of places you wouldn't be able to go because there's nowhere to stay, is there? So my old boss Hamish, he'd been to Iceland 3 or 4 times. He said that was the best place to see him.
Lou,
Right.
sorry, Lou,
Go-
there is a question about this. When if the pagans seen the Northern Lights, would they say it's like gods, or would they just say they would have a name for it, or?
Hello, there was something in England back in the day, and it was considered to be a sign of battles coming, because they were called the spears in the sky, and it was a sign that war was coming. Um, I'm not sure about how the Norse pagans would see this. Maybe they saw it as a little sign from Asgard, the gods from up there, something happening in Asgard. I don't know. I can't be sure of that. I'm just speculating here. But it's funny that we're not talking about Norse thing because there were traditions in Scotland and and Shetlands and all these places which are in between Britain and Scandinavia, when that period of the year was associated with the rites of purification. Now we don't do that in Southern paganism. However, in the Orkneys, for instance, in the Shetlands, there's lots of rites which again were criticized by the church when you would clean the house completely neat at solstice. You would shine the doorknobs, funnily enough, and you would put a big piece of iron in front of the door to protect against the trolls. And that's probably something that's inherited from the Danes as well, because like fairies don't like iron.
Yeah.
So there was this, there is that tradition there, probably inherited from our Viking friends, of our friends.
Yeah. Well, no,
That's
it's
all
just like
relative.
when you seen the lights, I thought, oh God, is a war coming or something like that? It's the gods are angry or something like
Basically,
that. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? If we think in 2025 the Northern Lights are wonderful, just imagine if you were living 3,000-4,000 years ago and you saw that in the sky. You probably would think it was some sort of sign from deity.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally. It's, sometimes you're thinking, first of all, you had things like you didn't have light pollution at all. You would be able to see a lot more stars. You'd have phenomena like solar or lunar eclipses as well. Yeah, and you would have also things like northern lights. Um, and then there's phenomena like Fata Morgana. Have you heard of that?
No.
Oh, this is so I've seen some, and it's quite amazing. It's something that happens when you've got a hot current and a cold current meeting, but kind of close to the ground. I think that was the explanation for it. And you can see things as if they float in the air. If you type Fata Morgana online, you'll see things like cars that seems to hover over the ground, or ships which are in the sky. Um, really strange thing, and that's an astrological phenomena that creates this optical illusion. It's quite amazing. I've seen a boat that seemed to be flying. It was pretty cool. Um, yeah, and that's also the kind of thing that I suppose in the olden days we'd have given birth to stories and legends.
Of course. Yes, I'll have a look at that online. Never heard of it.
Honestly, it's brilliant. And it's until I saw it, I didn't know what it was, but it's more common than people think.
Lou, there's one question I need to ask you. Are
Go
there
on.
any Christmas monsters like trolls and things in pagan times?
I know there's a trolls, yeah, up in the north, definitely. And I'm sure you've all heard of the Krampus, have you?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
No, I haven't.
That again is something that's not, Saint Nicholas is okay with the church, but the Krampus is something that affixed itself to the story later on, and that doesn't have a Christian origin. Um, so for our listeners who didn't know, the Krampus is part of the retinue of Saint Nicholas, and is represented in rather horrible ways with very, very long tongue, and he's a bit like a devil, really. In northern France, where I'm from, it's called le Père Fouettard, so it's like the whipping father. Um, and yeah, he will. So there's all kind of horrible kind of postcards and illustration which have become quite popular of late. They were generally produced in Victorian times, but they've been reprinted a lot, and I'm sure you've seen them. You've got the Krampus like kidnapping children, like children who look absolutely terrified and taking them away. Have you seen them?
No, I haven't. No.
They're quite horrible, really. Mm-mm. You'd say that's almost like he represents the kind of pedophile, I suppose, because he's got these kids that are, they've got eyes out, and you can see he's taking them with his long tongue, like it's quite horrible. But yeah, they've become quite popular of late because they're scary. Uh, and so Krampus, if the kids don't behave very well, they get a whip in their presence, as opposed to a toy or some sweets or whatever. Or they can also get a bag of coal. You imagine the disappointment when you open your Christmas present or your St. Nicholas present, like, oh. Um, so yeah, that was the kind. Is the demon? Is the bad? Is the baddie that punishes the bad kids, and when Saint Nicholas rewards the good ones. Um,
Mm.
and like I was saying, there is, in some tradition, you get bad fairies or evil spirits, and so what people do as well, um, in certain tradition, is that they will come outside and they will bang saucepans. So anything metal, because like I said, like the little people don't like metal, so the noise of church bells, the noise of banging saucepans, that would make them scamper away.
Yeah. And yeah, you get a bag of coal if you're bad.
Yeah, there are certainly some dark elements to Christmas, isn't there? Such as you say, Krampus, and films have been made about that.
Yeah, recently, absolutely.
And of course, we love a ghost story at Christmas time.
Absolutely. I mean, there is the Dickens story, isn't it? The Christmas Carol.
Yes, the greatest ghost story of all time, perhaps.
That's a brilliant. I remember my mom used to tell me that when I was little. I really like that story. Mm. It is a night when like spirits can, I suppose, like in that kind of Victorian tradition there, really, because the Victorians love their ghosts, don't they? And they created loads of ghost story when there were none. But yeah, so it's the story when ghosts can return, but they can find redemption and walk into the light. So there's always also a good, Christmas spirit, a happy ending thing going on around the theme of ghosts.
Do you think there's any like pagans? They had any ghost stories in that in the past and that, Lou? Do you
Oh
think?
yeah, I mean, ghosts are attested. I think I forgot which. And Pliny talks about ghosts as well, but I know there's ancient Greeks reports of ghosts as well. So you get ghosts in every culture at every time. I don't think there's a single culture that doesn't have ghosts. Um, I will be back on this podcast next month to talk about an absolutely terrifying poltergeist thing that happened to my best mate. Um, and I suggest you listen to this because you won't be able to sleep at night. Honestly, it's to prepare for that episode. I spent 2 hours on the phone with her to reminisce everything we went through as children. Obviously, because I didn't live in that house, I saw some stuff, but I didn't see half the things she'd seen. And I think it will be interesting because it's an incredibly violent poltergeist. And it's only now that I've been, looking at videos about the Enfield poltergeist, about Board Directory and things like that, that I've been able to really put that story in context. And I was thinking the other day, shit, like this is really bad. So I'd be curious to see what the co-host will think of that story. But I'm thinking he'd better hang on to his knickers because it's going to be really, really scary.
We're certainly looking forward to that episode, Lou.
Yeah. And I hope you enjoy it. And I'm kind of scared, to be honest, I'm kind of almost scared of doing it because I think there's some of the stuff is so extreme that I'm worried he's going to think I'm blocking him. So I'm not without telling you more. Keep your ears peeled for it. But part of me is thinking, God, I've signed up for this now. But what if he's not? What if he doesn't believe me at all? And obviously, this is only secondary narration there because my best mate is French. She doesn't speak much English at all, and because of and I'll explain that next week. But because of a profession, she doesn't want to speak publicly about it. She agreed that I could talk about it for her because it's in another country, it's another language, but she's very worried about people finding out. So you'll see.
Looking
Certainly at this point, Dave, do you have any specific questions for Lou based on the pagan Christmas?
As you mentioned about, is it Saturnalia or the
Yeah.
Roman?
Yes.
That's Saturn. Is there Sol Invictus, a sun god?
Yes. Oh, thanks for mentioning this actually, because that's something that's close to my heart. So Emperor Aurelian, he had his idea of creating like a pan empire religion because he realized that in every country that was conquered, people had a solar cult. And he married a Syrian lady called Julia Domna, and she came from a family of priests and priestesses of a particular solar deity. It was the god that ruled over fire and also the sun, and I can't remember the name of it from the top of my head. But she brought this cult, and Aurelian, having been initiated into that cult as well when he was in Syria, they decided to turn it into Sol Invictus, the unconquerable sun. And so they opened a festival for it. And what they were hoping was that everybody in the empire would then turn to that cult and it would become a state cult. And so originally the festival of Sol Invictus was over, I think it was a number of days in October, because that's when, it gets very dark. So you can see the sun is kind of about to be born. It's kind of the gestation of the sun begins. And then somehow in Rome, then they put the birthday of the sun on December the 25th. So in Rome, the kind of tradition deviated and went to another date. And that's when the birthday of Sol Invictus was placed. Yeah. that date as well. And you also got Mithras as well, who was a Persian deity, which was a now I don't know so much about him, but I know the armies used to worship Mithras, and they were initiated in caves. There's good evidence that Ken's cavern in Turkey was used for the Mithraic cult at one stage. And Mithras was also born of a virgin on December the 25th. So placing the birth of Jesus on December the 25th, that was done. I put that in my notes actually because I wanted to find out about it before I did the talk, and I've got it somewhere here somewhere. Let me have a look. Ta-da-da. Yeah, so Sol Invictus, we're okay, we've talked about that. And then, so we had Saturnalia at the same time, and we've mentioned that as well. And it was around, gosh, I can't remember where I've put it now. Oh yes, so the Saturnalia, there was good evidence that when Christianity began, the Christians joined the pagans in Saturnalia as well. So when the Roman Empire became Christian, there were talks from certain fathers of the church of dispatching Saturnalia and getting rid of the 25th as a party altogether. And eventually they kind of find the compromise that since people were fond of reveling at this time of year and celebrated the birthday of the sun as well at this time of year, they would keep it for the date of nativity, despite the fact that there's good indication that Jesus was born in spring, which makes also a lot of sense because that's when life is reborn, isn't it? As opposed to light. And so eventually they decided to keep that date, and I can't remember, and it's a shame. I thought I'd written it down, but I haven't. That they actually passed it in law that nativity would be on the 25th of December.
I thought he was born on the 25th of December all the time, but people say that he's like reborn and all like that, Jesus Christ, and I'm like thinking, how's that? How's he like reborn?
No one knows the definite date.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know he's because when lambs are born, isn't it? Generally, it's a spring.
Yeah.
So yes, we don't know. Yes, Lee.
Lou, we're coming to the end of our podcast.
Oh yeah, gosh, it's half past.
Yes, it's gone quickly, hasn't it? That hour. Thank you very much for all of your information, and not just about paganism, but about history as well. It's been a history lesson.
Well, it's kind of, because what I do when I go to pagan events is generally I talk about history of paganism. I talk about occultism through the ages. And that's kind of, I'm a bit of a disciple of Ronald Hudson, it's got to be said. I mean, he's come to some of my talks over the years, which, as every time he comes, I'm thinking, yes,
He's certainly very knowledgeable, isn't he? And a very good speaker as well.
Absolutely. So I've got a bit of I like to talk about the history of paganism through the years. That's kind of my speciality.
Well, this has been absolutely fantastic. I think it would be nice if we finished with you providing a greeting for our audience, a Christmas greeting.
Well, we don't have a particular Christmas greeting, really, but I can give you the traditional one: "Merry meet, merry part, and merry meet again."
Lou Hotchkiss-Knives, thank you very much. It's goodbye from me, and it's goodbye from Chris.
Bye, people.
Goodbye, everyone.
And goodbye from Dave.
Bye.
We'll see you next time on the Shadowcast.